Most people freak out when they see their shoulder blades sticking out. But here's the truth. Scapular winging isn't always bad, and you might be actually using the wrong approach to address it. Even some of the world's best athletes have obvious scapular winging, and they're pain-free. So in this video, I'm going to show you how to properly assess what type of winging you have, what science really says about it, and the specific exercises you need based on your specific pattern. Before we dive into assessments and exercises, let's get clear on what scapular winging actually is, and just as importantly, what it isn't. Scapular winging is when your shoulder blade seems to lift away from your ribcage or move unevenly. Most people spot this and immediately panic. They think something's broken, they avoid training, or they spend months doing isolated activation drills, hoping that somehow the shoulder blade will move back to what they assume as the original perfect position. But here's the thing, research actually shows that having a winged scapula can be totally normal. In fact, a study on healthy overhead athletes found that their dominant shoulder blade was often more tilted and shifted forward compared to the other side. And these athletes were playing pain-free without any problems. A 2021 review found that athletes with winged or uneven shoulder blades weren't any more likely to get injured than those without. In other words, just having a winged shoulder blade doesn't mean you'll have pain. And many people with pain have no winging at all. So you don't need to obsess over fixing your winging. Rather, it's more important to focus on getting stronger and moving well as a whole. Now, this doesn't mean that all winging is harmless. We can divide scapular winging in two different categories. Scapular dyskinesis, which is usually a coordination and capacity issue, which responds well to training. And the second one being pathological winging, which is usually nerve-related, usually sustained from injuries or surgery. And under the nerve-related causes, you have the long thoracic nerve injury, which usually affects the serratus anterior muscle, and the spinal accessory nerve injury, which affects the trapezius muscle. Some key indicators on when to see a specialist can be when you have a sudden onset of winging after a traumatic event, complete inability to raise your arm overhead, numbness or tingling down your arm, progressive weakness despite training, or when there's a visible muscle loss in your shoulder or neck. Remember, this is just a guideline. If you're uncertain, you probably want to get assessed by your healthcare professional. Now let's figure out what type of winging you have. We're going to use something called the Kibler classification. You're going to need a camera or phone on a tripod so you can record yourself shirtless from the back, and the test will require you to stand naturally and perform 5 slow and controlled arm raises overhead with both arms at the same time. Type 1 will be inferior winging, and this is the bottom corner of your shoulder blade tilting away from your ribs, especially as you lower your arms. For type 2, medial winging. This is the entire inner edge of your shoulder blade lifting off the rib cage. Type 3, superior winging. This is characterized by excessive shoulder shrugging, where the top edge of your shoulder blade moves upward too much or too early during arm elevation. And type 4 is what is considered normal, where both shoulder blades move symmetrically and stay relatively flushed against the rib cage throughout the movement. And once you've identified your type, we need to check if you have any strength and neurological control issues. So what we're going to do is perform what we call controlled articular rotations for your scapula. Now, I know I've shared this a lot in my previous videos, but I can't stress enough the importance of CARs. So remember to do it with the right intent. If you are already very confident with it, please skip ahead to the next exercise. We're going to be starting off working on our scapular CARs, so focusing on our shoulder blade area. So you can have your arms by your side this way and keep them locked in this position. Try to make sure that your arms are straight, don't have your elbows bent. To start, you want to breathe into the belly, lock in the breath, and then also do this thing called muscle radiation, which is keeping tension throughout the whole body. And this allows you to recruit more of the muscle fibers to allow you to generate more power for the movement, and while keeping the rest of the body still. You're going to isolate the movement to your shoulder blades, starting off with retracting the shoulder blades, and then we're going to transition over to elevation, so shrugging your shoulder blades up. Then from here, we're going to protract our shoulder blades forward, squeezing the pecs as well, and all the surrounding tissues. And then we're going to start depressing down our shoulder blades, and then we're going to repeat over to retract, elevate, protract, depress. And then from here, we can reverse the movement. Do make sure to avoid any compensations that might arise as well, like pushing the neck forward or rounding the back, or even when you're going back, trying to arch your back. So avoid that by keeping the whole body stiff. If you struggle with control in certain ranges, that tells you where your nervous system has lost the workspace. And that's where we'll want to target with exercise. If you need extra guidance on your shoulder rehab, I'm also opening up more slots for my one-to-one personalized coaching. So feel free to apply by clicking on the link below. Now here's what's actually going to help you. Building tissue where you need it most for your specific activities. Remember that everyone has different lifestyle demands. A desk worker needs different scapular capacity than someone doing overhead construction work or a parent that constantly lifts their kids. Your training should reflect where you need that resilience. I'm going to show you 3 exercises categorized by winging type. And the key principles you have to be aware of is to strengthen the pattern where you're deficient, build capacity for your specific activities and movements that you want to do, and create neurological control across all of those ranges, especially at the end range. Let's break down the exercises. So for the first exercise group, we're going to be doing prone ATY progressions. It's usually best for the type 2 and type 3. This will help target the lower and middle trapezius, the muscles that stabilize your scapula against the ribcage and prevent excessive elevation. For sets and reps, you can start off with 3 sets of 8 to 12 reps per position, resting for about 60 to 90 seconds between sets, and you can do this 2 to 3 times per week. As for the progression, you can start with body weight, and then when you start to get stronger and more confident, you can start to add weights by holding up dumbbells or just small weights that you have at home. For the second exercise, you can work on swimmers, and this will be great for the type 1 and building rotational control. So in the same position, you're going to lie face down with your arms extended overhead and the legs straightened, your forehead resting on the floor on a towel preferably. Keep your ribs down and don't hyperextend your lower back. Think about trying to reach through the movement and not just lifting up and high. Try to lift your arms off the ground at all times until you reach the end of the movement, just behind your lower back. And throughout this movement, you want to make sure that you're trying to internally rotate and externally rotate through the movement. The third exercise is going to be push-up plus, and this is going to be best for all types actually, and it's going to help you target the serratus anterior, the muscle most commonly weaker in your scapular winging. Essentially, you're performing a standard push-up where at the top of the position, you push through your hands to protract your shoulder blades, and then your upper back should round slightly as your shoulder blades spread apart. And then when you start to lower yourself, you want to try and retract your shoulder blades as you go down to the lowest point of your push-up. And then you're going to hold the end positions at the top and the bottom for at least 2 seconds before you start moving back to the next position. The plus is going to be a small movement, maybe about 1 to 2 inches, so you should feel muscles alongside of your rib cage working. Don't let your hips sag and maintain your plank position. Think about pushing the floor away during the plus phase. You can do about 3 sets of 8 to 12 reps and then adjust accordingly, of course, and then rest for about 90 seconds between the sets. Perform this about 2 to 3 times per week. As a guideline for exercise selection by your type, type 1 you can do swimmers, push-up plus and prone Ys. Type 2, push-up plus, prone Ts and swimmers. Type 3, prone Y, A and push-up plus. Type 4, you can rotate through all the exercises and focus on building capacity for your activity. A critical reminder is that these exercises build tissue where your scapular patterns need it most. But you must also train movements specific to your activities. You cannot move where you cannot control, and you cannot control what you haven't trained. A lot of people start this journey thinking, if I do everything right, my shoulder blade might look totally normal in a few weeks. But focusing on how your scapula looks can set you up for frustration at the end. Here's what you can start measuring when you incorporate the exercises. Can you reach overhead without pain? Are daily activities easier? And are you getting stronger in the relevant movements? And what you should not obsess over is whether your scapula looks perfectly symmetrical or whether the winging has completely disappeared. Remember, even with the best rehab, your shoulder blade might not even look perfect, and that's absolutely fine. The goal is pain-free, fully functional movement. Let's tackle some of the common questions that I might get. How long does it take to see improvement? Most people notice reduced pain and improved control within 2 to 4 weeks. Significant strength changes though take about 8 to 12 weeks of consistent training. Think of it like planting a tree. It takes time for the roots to grow before you see big changes above the ground. Should I stop training entirely? Nope. Instead of quitting, adjust any exercises that hurt. Total rest can actually make things worse because your connective tissues need to stay active. What if exercises make it worse? A little soreness is normal, especially at the beginning, but if you feel sharp pain or burning sensations, then it's probably a sign where your body's telling you that you're doing too much too soon. So scale back the difficulty, like the intensity, to however much you can handle at that point of time. Why is only one side seen to be affected? We're all a little bit lopsided depending on the activities that you do. You may carry bags on one side, play sports on one side more than the other. A little asymmetry is normal and doesn't need to be fixed perfectly. Scapular winging is one of the most misunderstood and overhyped issues in shoulder rehab. The research has shown that it's not a reliable cause of pain, it doesn't predict injury, and obsessing over perfect scapular position is pointless. What does matter is building strength and tissue resilience where you specifically need it, training neurological control across all the ranges, and progressively loading the movements relevant to your activities. Now you've got a protocol grounded in science, but solving scapular movement is just the beginning. If you have limited upper back mobility, your shoulders are still at risk for overload and compensation. So watch this video next, where I show you exactly how to improve your spinal mobility that lets your scapula work the way they're meant to. No more compensations, just smooth, strong movement.